Hey, everybody, welcome back. Devin, the OG, the original Grognar. No, that didn't work. We're not going to go. I need to just come up with a better way of delivery. It's just not working. Anyways, welcome back. Well, what the hell we got on the table? We got Dune. We got two different versions of Dune. We got the 1979 Avalon Hill version and the 2019 GaleForce Nines, 40 years apart. Who'd have thought? Wow. Anyways, so I already did the unboxing of it. Go watch the other video, yada, yada, yada. We played it last night. There was 4 of us. We had a lot of fun with it. I did not record that episode because we weren't able to get into the back room, but I talked to the store owner, and hopefully next week, well, not hopefully, I will be up there, but we should be able to get the back room next week, and as long as I remember to bring my tripod with me, we'll be able to play this again. Hopefully 5 people in that game, maybe 4, depends on who all we can drag into it. So, again, the game is really good if you got all 6 people, but, you know, it works with 4. I was Harkonnens. I ended up losing the Fremen Emperor alliance. Actually ended up winning the game on, like, turn 9 or turn 10 or something silly like that. Anyways, so, yeah, what are we doing here? What are we looking at? We're looking at the comparison between the 2 games, between the 79 and the 2019. Again, I just can't get over 40 friggin' years. Anyways, take a look at the box art cover. Again, my copy is 40 years old, so you'll have to forgive that it's a little worn. Between the 2, I mean, very striking similarities between the 2. You definitely have got the Shahulud. You've got these sweeping, curving dunes. Looks like one's daytime, one's nighttime. You got some Fremen on the front cover. Honestly, I think I like this one. The sandworm looks more realistic. This is more kind of a stylized. I don't really like that look. So, you know, it is what it is. Those are the box covers. So let's start taking a look at the components. And if I was smart, I would have set all this up beforehand. Rule book, I mean, yeah, is there any comparing an old school rule book with modern day? Yeah, we like the modern day. Printed on normal paper and 8 pages long. That was it. That's all there was. 8 pages long, and 2 of it was 3 of it was synopsis, Q&A, and strategy tips. So, and my copy is definitely seen better days. I've gone through both sets of rules, and the designers say there's like 3 or 5% changes. I'm really hard pressed to find what the changes are. I really have not been able to find much in the way of the changes. I just can't find them. I'm sure there are minuscule changes somewhere deep in the rules, but I just can't find them. So, and, you know, I was saying, well, I could look online for it, but I just haven't bothered. My buddy says, yeah, just Google it. It'll be there. So, yeah, I could have Googled it. All right, let's take a look at the battle wheels. My one surviving combat wheel. Well, that's interesting. The original's much bigger. I mean, it really doesn't matter what the size is. I did notice last night when we were playing, as I would put 2 of the cards, the Treachery Cards, it would overlap, and an astute observer could see what cards I had overlapping. With the old battle wheels, that wasn't really an issue, because the Treachery Cards back then were absolutely tiny. So you could hold 2 Treachery Cards on the combat wheel with no problem. However, the newer Treachery Cards, I mean, you've really got to work to try to hide it on the wheel, as compared to, you know, and okay, now granted, the Treachery Cards are definitely a different size. I think I like the size of the older one. If these would have been the same size as this, I'd have been very happy. It just, as it is, it's really hard to hide the treachery cards behind these wheels. Now, one other complaint I have about the wheels. All right, so you've got old Dune character, sticks right in there. It stays really, really nice. The new one, not so much. They're just slightly a touch too small. This stays a lot better, and you actually have to work to pop it out. I prefer that. There were several times I was fiddling around and trying to get the battle wheel set up, and I had my treachery cards, and I'd tip it the wrong way, and my guy would fall out, and my opponent could see it. Not really, not really helpful in combat. And this is all, I mean, you can just look. It's just the littlest bit too small. Maybe if it had been 1 millimeter in diameter bigger, they'd have sat in there just snugly. But as it is, just be aware. I mean, is it game breaking? No, it's just a difference. It is what it is. All right, and so yes, I have 2 battle wheels now. I've only had 1 battle wheel in the old one. So, oh, and definitely the new one's definitely much thicker cardboard. I mean, you can just tell. See if I can focus in a bit. Just much thicker cardstock. Maybe half a millimeter difference. But just enough to make it that much more sturdy. I mean, when you feel them in your hands, you can feel which is the more sturdy of the two. The newer ones are definitely the more sturdy of the two. All right, well, let's take a look at people. Take a look at some of the characters. Obviously, as I kind of already pointed out, the older counters are much bigger. The newer counters are smaller. I don't know if this is the prejudices of my youth. I think I like the older artwork better. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of them. It looks more, just a little bit more gritty. You know. Oh, and it's, just see, there's Stilgar. I mean, there's definitely a 70s influence on the artwork. There's Chani. Let's go, you know what, let's go ahead. Let's break out, where's the Fremen counters? Let's take a look at some of the Fremen differences. Let's see. There we go. So, all right, so new Chani versus old Chani. I mean, you have to kind of make up your own decision, your own mind. Again, I think I prefer the older style better. Let's see if we can find another one to compare it to. Where's Stilgar? Okay, there's Stilgar. Okay, now in this case, I do like the newer version. But I think generally overall, I prefer the older artwork over the newer artwork. I don't know what it is. There's just something just a touch, I don't want to say off-putting, but just a touch difference in it that, and like I said, maybe it's just the prejudices of my youth. So, and let's take a look at the troop counters, let's just go ahead and pour these out there. These are the Fremen troop counters, and I like these. And of course, you know, you've got the, if you've got a special troop type, so the stars indicate they're Fedakeen, which means they count as troop 2. Whereas compared to the old counters, which were just colored dots. And the old ones were much smaller. And then, of course, here we have, a Fremen troop type with the black star, which indicates that was Fedakeen. And then the red ones was the Emperor Sardaukar troops. So, yeah, the new counters, much bigger and much, well, they're just better in every single way. So, the new counters, do definitely like them. I had a wonderful time punching them out. They came out with no problem. They just popped right out. I didn't have any pieces of paper tear on it. I was actually really surprised. It was one of the smoothest punch outs I've ever had in a game in a very long time. All right, so pad of paper or pad of notes. This is the player aid card. Front and back. Everybody would get one of these. You would mark them down. Don't have this specifically in the new version. And, you know, everybody had one of these. It would go through the sequence of play. Okay, that right there is one of the big changes. Sequence of play in the modern version has 9 steps. This one has 6 steps. But, you know, so each player could keep track of the turn, the Atreides token loss for the Kwisatz Haderach, and then you would mark down. Originally, that's the other difference. Okay, see, now as I'm going through this, I'm spotting differences. In the old game, you would just randomly draw leader chits, and whatever leader chits you got, that's what it was. Well, that's what it was, and then you would have to mark it down here. In the new version, there's actually a deck of cards that have all the leaders on them, and you draw from a deck of cards. Okay, so that's one of the changes. Okay, I like that. And then, of course, the Bene Gesserit prediction down here. I've never seen anybody pull off a Bene Gesserit prediction, but if you were able to pull it off, you were a friggin' god. But yeah, and this had all the character advantages. And yeah, this one is kind of nice because it's got all the treachery cards listed. I think in the newest version there's a list of all the treachery cards in the rulebook, but this is something that each player had, and so they could, you know, just see what the text was when they had the card in front of them. Again, this is newspaper print. I mean, this isn't even normal paper. Very thin, very flimsy. But it did what it was meant to do. It was one sheet, played one game, throw it away. Boom, you're done. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the shields. These are the new shields. So you got Fremen with Elite Kinds, Emperor Pradesh Emperor Shaddam IV, Spacers. I mean, it's the Spice Girls. Yes, we are now calling the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood the Spice Girls. I had that ruined for me. I'm going to ruin it for everybody else. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, Paul Muad'Dib. And the nice thing is, on the inside, you have just, you know, a little bit of strategy, a little bit written behind, and basically you just put this in front of you, like so. You keep your spice back here, you keep your troops back here, you keep your leaders, you know, anything that you really want to keep hidden away from prying eyes. So, and these are very simple. Like I said, you just, you know, just fold them. Bam, you're done. The old ones, and this is the guild. I'll go ahead right now and say I prefer how, I didn't ever really like how the guilders looked in the old one, but they look better than what I think the modern day guilders look like. And then, of course, you had the 84 David Lynch, where the guilders were completely, you know, the fully mutated navigators were completely, you know, not human. The 2001 sci-fi series, I did not like the look of the guilders in that one. A fishman kind of makes little sense to me, or at least it did back then, but they look better than they used to. So, and these were a pain in the butt to put together because you had to fold them. And you had this tab that you had to put in here, tab to put in here, and you did that on the bottom as well, and basically folded up like that. So it sat in front of you like this, but as you can tell, it's kind of hard to get your hands under. They were unwieldy, they were cumbersome. It was kind of nice because it had all this on, but nowadays, everybody has got their own cards. So, you know, here's the Gilder card. So, how's that compare? At start, 5 forces in Teak Siege, 5 tokens in Teak Siege, 15 in reserve. Start with 5 spice. Start with 5 spice, free revival, 1 force. Free revival, 1 token. I mean, it's basically, it's virtually identical. It's just how the information is presented. So I don't like the old school shields. However, the graphics on them are pretty fabulous. Then we have the Parash Emperor Shaddam the 4th. I never liked how Paul looked. And again, you got to remember, this was 1979, which is even before, 5 years before the David Lynch film came out. The 8 Kinds. Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Moheim. And of course, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. See? No jet suit on the flying fat man on this one. So that's always a good thing. But yeah, here's all the, I mean, a few of the changes that I've noticed. I think all the names are the same. I think the stats have stayed. Yeah, Lady Jessica, she was 5. Fade Rautha, 6. Duncan, I always thought Duncan Idaho should have been higher, but you know, he was a swordsman, personal bodyguard, not really a tactician. Dr. Yui. I was playing the Harkonnens last night. I had one of my own guys as my trader, and then I had one of the Fremen, the tier 5 Fremen. I can't remember his name. Oh yeah, here it is, right here. I had this guy as my trader, and he never showed up. But I had Dr. Yui and who was the other one? I had Thufir. So I had 2 from 2 of the trader discs from House Atreides. I had both Thufir and Dr. Yui. So I thought that was pretty cool. Let's go through here. I got tokens falling out all over the place. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the board next. All right, so here's the old board in 2 pieces. And this is much more colorful. I know it's 70s era art style, but I like how it looks. I like the bright colors. I like that the polar sync pops. I like that you can tell, which are the protected areas, which are the deserts. It just really, really pops. And then of course you had area for spice and treachery. And the Bene Talaxu tanks. Okay, yeah, graphics are kind of on the Bene Talaxu tanks. But I kind of like how this map looks. Let's go ahead and take a look at the newer version, which I believe is bigger. Yes, much bigger. It's probably, 25% bigger. So it's a much more subdued color scheme on it. I mean, it kind of looks more like it's kind of an old-timey map with most of the desert looking the same color. The good thing, this map has got the phase track up here, so you can keep track of what phase it is. And you got the turn track up here. And then, of course, the Talaxu tanks and the Spice Bank. So bigger map. The sectors are more defined for the storm, as you can tell. Let's see if I can turn this without. I mean, the storm marker fits right on there real nice. And they kind of did the same thing in the old game, but you just put it on the outside. There was no, try to get the glare off. There's no delineation, but here with the newer one, you've got this delineation, this spot right there, real nice. And it's got the arrows on it to mark which way the storm's supposed to move. So that's nice. I do like that. And they have better defined positions for the player markers to go closest on the board where you're sitting. The old one kind of had it too, but it just had a little dot. All right, if you're closest to this point, go ahead and put your player marker there, and that helps determine who the first player is, because you take wherever the storm is at, and then whoever's the next player marker to be hit, that who is end up going to be the first player for the turn. And that can sometimes be very, very handy. And then, of course, in the old Avalon Hill version, you've got everybody who did Avalon Hill. I don't think they changed this card in 20 years of business. And then, of course, I don't think they changed their order forms in about 20 years of business either. Anybody who's played Avalon Hill games knows exactly what these are. And then parts list. Let's see, how much did Dune cost back then? Where's Dune on here? It's a very tiny catalog. Yeah, Dune right there. $15. That's it. $15. And of course, you could order the parts. Board, rules folder, leader counters, everything. Nowadays, Dune was $45, $50, which was actually, yeah, that is actually pretty cheap for a board game nowadays. So, what haven't we looked at? We haven't looked at the, okay, so the spice markers are just, you know, they're just printed on white squares. And that's your spice markers. New version of spice markers, definitely better. Difference is you have different denominations. Then it was 1, 2s, and 4s. Now it's 1s, 2s, 5s, and 10s. I don't know which one I prefer. I don't know how many people are really going to be rolling in 10 spice to justify having a spare 10 spice counter around. But, and then, you know, here's the destroyed shield wall from Family Atomics. And the cool thing is that fits. There's the shield wall. Let's pull it out and take a look at it. So when you use the Family Atomics, it goes right in there, so you know, yep, shield wall's been destroyed. The problem with the shield wall being destroyed, why is that so important, is that normally Arakeen and Rimwall West and, you know, these protect as the storm blows over. Once the shield wall goes, those cities no longer protect you. So you're not safe in them. If the storm blows by, you'll get eaten. Except for the Fremen. The Fremen lose only half forces, but everybody else loses everything. And, you know, here's the new storm marker. So you got that all set up. So, I mean, you're looking at a game 40 years later. So, for the most part, the graphics are going to be much more updated. Components are going to be much more updated. So, let's take a look at the Treachery cards. We have Treachery here. I never really liked the style, how they did the cards, because, you know, Treachery kind of, it's definitely 70s, and you've got this weird font going on. Then you got the spice cards. Very small. Compare them. I mean, these are regular poker playing cards. These were whatever Monarch Avalon could fit onto a sheet and print out. Monarch Avalon was the mother company of Avalon Hill. They were the publishing company that owned Avalon Hill, which is why Avalon Hill was able to pump out so much, because they were owned by a publishing company. So, but yeah, you've got, you know, just the different provinces and how much spice they show. I kind of like these because it gives a little bit of the topographical. Of course, you got the Shahulu, the Great Worm. It gives just, you know, just a hint of a topographical feel to it. Whereas the new spice cards, let's see, are they in here? No, that's not. They're in the other deck. Just show, and now I do like it that they show on the map where it's located, because it, you know, it saves you having to find it. So, you know, Silago North, that tells you right on the map where the province is and how much of it. So I can see the benefits. And of course, there's Sandworm Alert. And one of the things they did with the new version is that if it's a zone that has a spice blow in it, it marks it with that icon, but it also tells you how much spice is there. So if, you know, you have one person controlling the deck, all they have to do is say Old Gap, and, you know, you just look where Old Gap is, and it tells you it gets 6 spice there on a blow. So that's kind of cool. But I do kind of like the topographical feel that they gave for each zone. Oh, and yeah, looks like old gap right there. We were just talking about that. You know, you got this big old ridge line here. But anyways, now we get to the treachery cards. Yeah, there's nothing on these cards that tell you what they do. And they're definitely the psychedelic 70s feel to these cards. I mean, they did the job. They definitely did the job. And they kind of were funky and pretty, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Let's take a look at the new treachery cards. I much prefer the look of the... Well, I like the new cards, period, just because they're poker-sized. Again, let's take a look. Whoop! I'm dropping everything. You know, I got big hands anyways. So, you know, playing cards are small in my hands to begin with. These are just abominably tiny. So that's all... that. Did I lose a deck of cards? No, it's right there. All right, so there's the spice. Put that away. Oh, and we got cards now for the storm. The Fremen used to just have a bunch of tokens labeled 1 through 5 that they'd put in a cup and pull out so they'd know what the storm blow the next turn was. We have actual cards for it now. That's nice. The House Atreides Kwisatz Haderach in the old version was just a little track he kept marked off on the player's aid card. Now you've actually got a card and a token that as you lose troops, and then once you hit 7, you can take advantage of the Kwisatz Haderach bonus. Alliance. This was these. If you're an alliance someone, you take this card and this tells you what benefits you get from them. They did not have that in the original game. Sequence of play cards, really cool. Bene Gesserit. For the Bene Gesserit to win, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, they have to guess who's going to win and on what turn they win. So you have 10 cards. So Bene Gesserit will pull one of these cards, not randomly, they will decide one of these cards, and then they will decide who they think will win. And, well, if they happen to guess correctly, they actually win instead. So the Bene Gesserit can kind of be a kingmaker. If they want someone to win on a certain turn, they'll do everything in their power to make sure that person wins on that turn. The guild's kind of cool. The guild wins if by the end of the game, nobody else has achieved their victory conditions. So the guild and the Bene Gesserit both are not very strong militarily, but their victory conditions reflect that. The Spacers, or the guild, doesn't have to try to take over a certain amount of territories. All they have to do is prevent anybody else from winning. So they can strike where they want to. If someone's getting close, then they can just go ahead and hit them. And as long as they keep anybody else from winning, they win. And the Bene Gesserits, since they've predicted, the Bene Gesserits can kind of be kingmakers and like, all right, I've guessed for the Fremen to win on turn 7. I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that the Fremen win on turn 7. But here's all the traitor cards. What did I do with the treachery cards? Did I pull them out already? Oh, they're there. I did pull them out already. And the nice thing is the cards go into descriptions, what exactly it does. So, there's no doubt as to what each card does. Now, these treachery cards, again, I mean, it's the exact same cards as was in the original, but at least this tells you, cheap hero, tells you it's a special leader, and then it has the description of what it does. And it does that for every card. So you're not looking in the rule book all the time. You've got everything right there as you need it. I think they could have done a little bit more than just, silhouettes on it, but they're functional. They work just fine. I have no problem with them. But yeah, head and shoulders above the original. That's for sure. So yeah, that's basically Frank Herbert's Dune and GaleForce Nines Dune compared side by side. if you know the original, you'll know how to play this. I mean, like I said, I've looked for differences. Really, I mean, most of it's just layout and where the information can be found. I have not been able to find much in the way of rules changes. So, there we go. That's what we got. Dune. Side-by-side comparison. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, put them in the comment section. I'll talk to everybody later. See ya!